Hi, I'm Mandy Furgewell. That's right, I'm the wife of the infamous Drew. So yeah, my life's pretty exciting. But not as exciting as this podcast is going to be. So get ready for Drew Furgewell and Paul Baylor as they present I'm Sure They're Doing Their Best. Hopefully their next episode will be I'm Sure They'll Do Something Really Nice for Their Wives. Or maybe I'll even take, if they do, I'm Sure They'll change the toilet paper rule. So here they are. Get excited.
There's a lot going on there. First of all, I changed the toilet paper roll.
I don't believe you.
And if we want to get right into it, and we're gonna do some libel and slander on this podcast, there's somebody in this house that uses way more toilet paper than the other person, and it's not me. That was pretty good, though. I got to give her kudos.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I wanted to get your reaction. So,
yeah, that's a thing that's on the internet now. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Is that going to be our new intro?
It's going to be the one for this episode. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
The more and more I think about it, the funnier it gets.
It's so good on so many levels.
There's a lot going on there. Oh man, my feet hurt this week.
Okay.
Did a lot of walking. This week. Yeah, I did a lot of walking, a lot of presenting this week. So I'm just I'm glad to finally be sitting down.
Well, I'm glad you're sitting down too.
Yeah. How's your week? How's everything?
It was good. I'm glad the week's almost over, but yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. So it's a Thursday. Man, first week of October already. Time flies.
Indeed.
Couple follow-up items for the podcast this week. First and foremost, since we've already heard from my amazing wife on this podcast this week, I rightfully got called out on my case hand-me-down scheme.
Okay.
I didn't really think that one through. So last episode, I think we talked about iPhone cases, and you mentioned you got a new phone, and you did the clear case, and we talked about how the clear case isn't great.
I have some comments, but you first.
Yeah. We talked about how that wasn't great, and I mentioned that I had bought that case prior to buying my non-case case that is on my new work phone. And I mentioned that out loud, again, on the internet, where everybody, including people I care about deeply, could hear it, and they realized that, wow, I'm just getting Drew's hand-me-downs. Yeah. Right. So
busted.
So that was good. So I think we talked about it last time. So I don't know we need to spend all the time in the world on it, but yeah, man, that thing shows a lot of fingerprints.
Yeah, and I've noticed another issue. So I'm still rocking I'm rocking the Monoprice clear iPhone Pro case, and I like it. Except I never really realized, that while they feel and they look like the case makes a tight seal around the phone, it does not.
Ooh,
and
okay.
It's very gross in there already. I can see bits of pocket and human kind of smudged up there, especially around the top and the bottom. Yeah, it's gross.
That thing goes in your pocket or spends any time near your face, it's going to pick up some remnants.
Yeah, it's kind of disgusting. Yeah.
Okay, now is that the Monoprice one?
Yeah, I'm using the Monoprice one because the Apple clear case is too slippery.
Yeah, it was a little slick, wasn't it? I mean, the case is pretty protective. I'm not worried about what happens when it does eventually fly out of my hands, but I didn't like how slippery it was.
No.
Yeah, I upgraded to I ditched the old leather case, and I just have one of the Apple iPhone 10 silicone cases on my primary phone now. Which leads me to the other piece of follow up is apparently I'm ineligible to get a phone. Whatever tea leaves the AT&T people read to generate the you're allowed to have an upgrade or not have an upgrade didn't come out in my favor. I did ask. I did want to get the new iPhone. I've been resisting for a while, but I can't even halfway buy out my phone. The only option I have is to fully buy my phone, which is kind of BS because I've had it for a long time.
That stinks.
Now I do I do have upstairs in my desk drawer, I do have the old iPhone, I want to say it's an 8 Plus, that is outright bought, and I could probably sell that for a decent chunk of change. But I'm a little bit bummed, so I gotta wait a while. But yeah. Any follow-up for you?
The only other phone follow-up that I have is over the last weekend, I took my son. He's had his cell phone for 2 years now, and he's treated it really well. Like, it was in good shape. He's been responsible. He's always answered the phone when we call and stuff. So I figured, it's time. He can get a new phone. So we went and he looked, and he picked a white iPhone 11. And I'm kind of jealous because that may be the most beautiful phone I have ever seen. The way the white is just like all the way around, and I don't know, something about it. It speaks to me. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. So are you having regret?
You know what? I like the size of the Pro. I like the 3 cameras. I like having the best thing I can have. But aesthetics wise, yeah, I'm a little regretful. Like, that phone is pretty good looking.
Yeah. When I was in the Apple store recently and I saw the green, which immediately kind of confirmed that the green wasn't going to be for me, I did like the look of the white.
Yeah.
I did. And I've owned white phones before. Yeah, I think the white would be the one that I would get.
I've had my 10 was the white or silver or whatever they called it, but man, the white iPhone 11 is spectacular to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you played with the cameras a lot on your phone?
Just a little bit. I really haven't played around with night mode much because I haven't had the opportunity. With the pictures I have taken, I've taken some really great portrait shots. So far, I'm pretty happy with them. I can see the improvement. But hopefully soon when I'm on vacation here coming up, I'll be able to use it some more. Maybe try out a night mode for real.
Oh, that's right. The big trip for the metal show to Colorado,
yes,
right?
Yes, we're going to Denver. Not next week, but the week after. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll have to adjust our schedule accordingly.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
OPSEC, don't be creepy. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. We got a pretty full doc this week.
Yeah.
What do you want? Where do you want to dive in first here?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
So I've got a weekend project brewing.
Ooh,
that
okay.
I don't know if you're gonna jump in on this bandwagon too. So Apple, you and I are both Mac users, and apparently Mac OS Catalina launches tomorrow.
Yes, I'm a little nervous.
Really? I'm very excited.
Yeah, okay. You can say why you're excited, and I can say why I'm nervous.
Okay. So for those people that don't rock Macs or Mac OSs, Mac OS Catalina is the next major release of the OS, and Apple has been naming the OSs after places in California. So what's the one we're rocking right now?
High Sierra or Mojave?
Yeah, I think it's Mojave. Maybe it's High Sierra.
Mojave.
One of the
Mojave.
two. And then Mojave is the one we're rocking right now. And Catalina is launching tomorrow, which is October 4th. And they're bringing a lot of kind of high level Surface features to the OS. The biggest one is we are finally kind of breaking out of the tyranny of iTunes, and we're getting separate apps for music, TV, podcasts. So I don't have to launch iTunes and deal with there's a new version of iTunes every time I launch it. And I'm excited to have a separate apps, very, very similar to what you get on an iPhone. There's a couple other little things bordering on gimmicky to maybe marginally useful. One is the new sidecar feature, which you can use an iPad as a second screen if you're one of those people that likes to do that thing. There's going to be some voice control in it. They're doing screen time. I don't know if screen time really applies to laptops and desktops, but sure. And Apple Arcade is the big one that comes out with this.
Yeah.
So the games that have been releasing on iOS and most of the games that have been releasing on iOS and Apple TV OS are going to start making it to Apple Arcade proper on the desktops and laptops that Macs have, which is pretty cool. As somebody who doesn't do a ton of gaming on the Mac, I just like having the option. Yeah, and the other big one is Project Marzipan, which was formerly Project Catalyst.
It was Marzipan and is now called Catalyst.
It's now officially called Project Catalyst. Yes. Okay, I got that backwards. Yeah, and that's just basically Apple saying, look, if you write an app, we want it to run everywhere. And that means that the apps that are on your phone can be on your Mac, can be on your iPad. So there's a lot going on there. The one feature that I'm most excited about, though, isn't one that's getting a lot of press. And it has to do with the new file system enhancements to the OS, which I think are still going in for this release. I haven't seen a lot about it, but it's going to make mount points and partitions on your file system work a little bit differently. So if you want to do things like Boot Camp, you don't need to resize any partitions. You can just basically have pointers all over the place for your partitions.
You can do that now.
Which can you?
It's a feature of APFS, their new file system. Yeah.
I thought, okay, so hold on, set me straight then, because I'm under the impression that there's some major change happening to APFS.
I think there's some improvements, but one thing you can do now, and I've done this because I ran the Catalina beta for a little bit on my Mac, and what you can do now, the feature that I used is you can create multiple partitions, but they can share the same drive space.
That's what I'm referring to.
So I actually did that when I played around with the Catalina beta, and it was really nice. And then even then you can set quotas, so you don't have to carve out that space. But you can say this partition can only take 200, 300 gigs or whatever. But it doesn't grab all of that at once. They kind of share. They're actually using this feature for an interesting security enhancement in Catalina. Is your operating system is going to be mounted as in a separate partition, but it's going to be mounted read-only. So it's taking system integrity protection, which they introduced a while ago to keep you from deleting stuff that's important. But they're going hardcore and no, that's a read-only partition.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, what unless you're the kind of person that enjoys messing with plists and manually changing config files in Nano or Vim, do you? I think that's a good change. I think that's a really good change. Yeah, that's what I was curious about, because I have heard people talk about these forthcoming changes to APFS in the newest release, and I thought it was around the partition sizing. I mean, granted, I don't run Boot Camp right now, so I haven't resized the partition in a while. But it'd be nice to carve out some partitions of certain sizes for, say, Docker container images, right? Because those get crufty real quick. That is a sneaky eater of space on my Mac right now. So it'd be nice to carve out a partition for that instead of quota. I don't know what the error is going to look like when I fill that up, but
don't know.
Yeah, same thing for VMs on my Mac. It'd be nice to make sure that I don't exceed a certain size there, because I only have the 512 gig storage on my MacBook Pro. So I don't have a ton. I have enough because I don't really store pictures or a ton of user data on there.
Got it, yeah.
It's primarily a work machine, right? So the only thing I have on there that I consider of any value is, kind of source controls, source code, work documents. But, being the cloudy person that I am these days, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I really care about is on my personal or work OneDrives or other places, and all my source code is checked in like it should be. So if that thing takes a torpedo hit, I'm not losing a ton. But I'm excited to get that and install it. Now, I will probably work on that this weekend, and this kind of helps me segue into the next kind of topic that I wanted to talk about. Was I've mentioned on the show that, for my work, I use my MacBook Pro. And in order for that device to access company resources, like VPN and other things, it has to be company managed. Which means installing Intune software, and it installs certain policies and certificates, and all things that I think are good, like enforcing strong passwords and file vault and all those things, right? But what's interesting is I had a problem with Outlook this week that required me to use the web client for Outlook for about a day, and I adjusted way faster than I thought I was going to, because I haven't really used an Outlook web client in years. Anytime I've had to interact with an Outlook mailbox, I've always used an Outlook client in some form. So I hadn't really used the web client much, and it was very pleasurable. It worked very, very well. And it made me realize that, listen, if I get my regular email, like through Gmail in the web browser, there's really no reason I can't do that for work as well. So I think what I'm going to attempt is, when I go to upgrade to Catalina, I'm probably going to completely wipe my Mac and start fresh with a fresh install of Catalina, and not make it managed, and instead rely on web-based clients for my interactivity.
Interesting.
And that won't require me to make it company managed. Now, we do use secure email for some things, so like highly confidential things will be secure, and you cannot open those in the web browser. Like, it'll say, this person has chosen to protect this email, you can't open this. You basically need certificates to do that, and I think, or a desktop version of Outlook that you're authenticated to, which I think still uses certificates. I don't really know how it works, is what I'm saying. And if I need to do that, those might need to be opened on a VM that I'm running Outlook on that is managed or domain joined. So I might try that live when I do it, and if I find that I can't get my work done. But here's the thing: like, a lot of the things that I'm working on my Mac these days, outside of the Office suite, is development, and thanks to Azure DevOps and security tokens and multi-factor authentication and Azure Active Directory, like, I don't necessarily need to be device managed for that. As long as I have some sort of multi-factor authentication to authenticate to these websites, so what? So that's my plan. We'll see how long it goes. I may end up making it device managed. And, the other thing is I have no idea if the Intune managed things that we use are compatible with Catalina, and I won't know. I'm not going to just do an in-place upgrade. I'm going to unmanage my device before I do it, and then kind of see where it goes. Anyway, so that's like my big project for the weekend, I think.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Now, the one concern I have, I have two. One, my major concern about Catalina is the death of 32-bit apps. Mm-hmm. So they are getting rid of basically 32-bit app support 100%. Now, I've known this was coming, and I'm down to like one app that I absolutely need to use, and that's going to have to run inside of a VM. It's the Logitech Harmony remote software, which still uses Silverlight. Gross. But I think a lot of people are going... I don't know how the upgrade experience is going to be, whether it's going to warn you before you install, let you know what's going to work and what's not going to work. But I'm afraid that Apple's going to get a little bit of backlash when, a lot of people's apps just stop working when they upgrade to Catalina. But we'll see. Yeah.
Is that the only app you know of that's you're gonna be impacted with?
I had a few others on my machine, but I made the kind of decision that, like, you know what, I don't need them anymore. Like, I checked to see whether there was updates, and I just kind of moved on with life and said, meh. It's going to be really bad for games on the Mac because a lot of developers just aren't going to spend the time to upgrade their game to 64-bit version, especially when the Mac is such a small piece of the gaming pie, and Windows will run, anything forever. So
if only you didn't subscribe to the theory that you needed a cloud-enabled remote. I wonder how your life would be.
Much worse, I think. Much worse. I love that. I love that thing. I love it.
Okay. No shame in that game. You love what you love.
Now, I have one question. I have one question about going to the all web-based lifestyle.
Okay.
Command tabbing, like between applications. That's one of the reasons why I like using Mail and the Outlook client and the Teams client and like a native Twitter client is so like they're individual apps and like can command tab between them. Which if you're on Windows, it's kind of like Windows tab or Alt tab to switch between apps. This is part of my muscle memory, and I just like being able to command tab, finding them. But with Outlook, running like Outlook and stuff in a browser, like you would have multiple tabs open. So you would first have to command tab to Chrome and then pick your tab. Like, do you find that being a problem for you, or am I just overthinking it?
All right. So you're overthinking it. And the reason that is that the only app that I think I'm going to have to run in a web-based capacity is Outlook.
Okay.
So Teams will still run even though it's not device managed, and as long as I can download files, which that'll be downloading files from the internal websites and things that I need will be the biggest challenge. If I can download files, that means I can open them in PowerPoint and Word and and Excel, right? So I don't necessarily need to be authenticated to open those files, I don't think, unless they're protected, which is another story. But so Teams and all those other things will be running in normal clients. And when I'm using Outlook in the web client, I open that in Edge, the Chromium-based browser, out now for all major OSs. I use that. And I don't run Chrome on my Mac. I either use Edge or I use Safari. And I'm like a 98% Safari. It's only when something craps out in Safari that I go to a Chromium-based browser.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
So Chrome is not good these days.
It's not. I mean, a lot of people still like it because they've been using it for a long time. But yeah, especially like I've noticed, like not that I'm on my battery on my laptop all the time, but Chrome just eats the battery like nom nom nom.
Yeah, it really gets my fan spinning, if you know what I mean.
I do.
And when even if I would need to have multiple tabs open in Edge, I would usually reserve one specific instance of Edge for Outlook.
Okay.
So I should still be able to command tab to it. Or command tab.
Command tab.
Yeah, I should still be able to command tab to it. Yeah. So that was kind of my workflow for that. And, my thing is that, I have, for my work setup, I've got one, 5K display, and I use virtual desktop or spaces. Yeah, I use spaces to flip back and forth. So typically my workflow is on one space. I have all my productivity related things like email, open documents, notes, websites that have information in them, and then I reserve one space specifically for dev work, so I'm not as distracted. So like on that second space, I'll have a couple terminals open and Visual Studio Code, Azure Data Studio, some text editor or something that I'm doing active work in. And then over on my laptop, which is off to the side on a stand, I usually run Spotify and Teams on that. So Teams is there kind of in the background so I can monitor it. And, people either love to hate Teams or love to hate Slack or love to hate Skype or whatever. And really what it comes down to is how naggy those programs are. I do like Teams in the fact that you can fine-tune your alerts and notifications.
Yeah.
So I only really get notified if somebody mentions me by name or somebody messages me directly or somebody posts a message in certain teams. So 90% of the things that happen on Teams don't generate notifications for me, but the things that need to bubble up and need my immediate attention, if someone's reaching out to me directly, or we have some internal teams that I have to kind of not necessarily monitor but keep up to date with, I have notifications turned on for that. So that just kind of sits off to the side. And then I've got Spotify over there to see, what song I'm currently listening to.
Yeah, you need your tunes.
You do need tunes. I do need tunes. So anyway, I'm going to give that a shot. And, it's funny. It kind of segues us into what I think is kind of the main topic for tonight. And the topic is dogfooding.
Okay.
So, it's a term that I didn't realize a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with. I mean, I think if you're a developer, you probably have heard this term before.
I think especially if you're in the Microsoft space. Yeah. That's a phrase they use a lot.
Yeah, and the reason that it was kind of fresh in my mind is there was a lot of talk about dog fooding this week, and part of the problems that I had with Outlook this week were related to dog food, were chalked up to dog fooding experiences, which I can sort of talk about. And there's also Dog Food Con going on this week in Columbus, which is a conference that just gets better and better every year. I'm not there this year. Kind of regret that. It's just I couldn't make it work with my schedule this year. So anyway, so Paul, why don't you talk to us about dog fooding and what it means?
So I think originally I first heard the phrase coming from Microsoft, and the notion is that Microsoft also uses the software that they're developing. So, like Azure DevOps, right? They use Azure DevOps to build Azure DevOps, right? And also like they're running pre-release versions of software in kind of a production environment with, I guess the fundamental idea is, it's one thing to build and write the software, and it's another whole level of understanding to use it and be the end user. And by using the software, like really using it, not just kind of like testing it, but like really running your production like systems on this new software, maybe even pre-release software, you really begin to understand the software and, find bugs sooner and increase usability and, design and all that wonderful stuff that comes along with it. So that was, how I kind of understand dog fooding.
Yeah, and I think if you Google it, you'll see a lot of references to, Microsoft basically saying, challenging other people. And what it really boils down to is this, and I think the key kind of component of dog fooding is, it's one thing to develop an application that you use internally or publish externally, but let's say you have an API that your particular team uses, or you make something, right? You want to use it yourself because you want to have the same experience that your users are going to have. And that in turn is supposed to make you better because you are going to experience the same frustrations, you're going to experience the same usability, you're going to experience sometimes the same joy and the same pleasure of using the same software that you're developing. So if you develop, a game or a website or whatever, it'd be like you never using it. And I think, dog fooding is getting to be increasingly commonplaces. But yeah, it all kind of boils down to that is, just using the software that you're using. And you have a great example there where you talk about, at Microsoft, you use Azure DevOps to build Azure DevOps, which is very kind of matrixy or inception-y, I guess. But it's absolutely true. I can tell you that we use it internally very heavily for a lot of things, for a lot of our projects. And it's kind of fun to be on the inside and getting to use some of those things. And case in point, right, is, using Office even, we're encouraged to take part in, not pre-releases, not like betas, like not stuff that is straight up, broken or in development, but I think you would call it technically like fast ring development or preview editions. We're encouraged to use what isn't considered to be the most stable recent build on some of our software. And that extends to almost literally anything that we use. And, by and large, it works. I mean, occasionally I'll encounter some weirdness and there's mechanisms to report the bugs up. But it's been kind of fascinating to be a part of that. but yeah, that is something that is really kind of interesting to see. And I was kind of shocked, because I had heard the term years ago when I was working with you, even before I would attend Dogfood Con. Working at our previous job, I heard people use the term before, and I had never heard it. And I'm working with a lot of people who were database administrators in their previous lives, and I just don't think that they're as familiar with the term. So, yeah. And it's like, I dog food this podcast. I mean, I listen to it for enjoyment.
Yeah. I listen to it when I do the edit, but I can't listen to it a third time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, it's my dirty little secret. I don't listen to the final cut because I made it, so I feel like I don't have to. But yeah.
Yeah, but okay, but isn't that the very definition of dog fooding? Like, shouldn't you listen to it to make sure that it turned out the way you think it's going to turn out?
Early on, I was really nervous, and I would spend a long time like going through the final edit to make sure everything was fine. But it's only 18 episodes, right? But I've gotten confident in my skills, and I kind of know that, like, yeah, like I did the edit, I heard it, it's good, and I move on. Yeah. So I know I'm bad. I should listen to it again, but I don't. But I make it. So yeah.
I get it. I get it. And if you want to listen to it critically, like, you have to kind of block out the time, because if you have it on as background noise, as I tend to do, like, I hear it but I don't listen.
Yeah, because you were there, so you know.
Like,
yeah.
I hear our voices and I hear the words coming out of them, but I'm not being critical of the things that are coming out of them. Yeah, I get that. I do get that, I guess. Yeah. So dog fooding, it's a term that is kind of fascinating, and especially now that I work where I work, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think
buckle up.
I think it's just a good practice when you're developing software, or even like, practices and procedures and those kinds of things. I mean, you're developing it, that gives you one level of understanding, but using it gives you another. I think it's also, there's just like, not pride, but like a professionalism to say, like, yeah, this is good enough for me, so it's also good enough for you. Like, I'm not just making this because, like, I don't care about you and I just give you a piece of software so you stop complaining. Like, I also use it. So I think that kind of just gives it a, respectability, or I don't know, there's a word I'm looking for and I can't think of it.
Well, I think kind of the most famous example of it is, I think it goes back to like the days of Windows NT. And the story that I heard is that basically the developers that were working on the team for Windows NT ran computers of the nightly builds of NT when they were developing it, which I can imagine would be excruciatingly painful and scary. But I guess it would put it in pretty stark relief if you had to use your daily computing on an operating system was under active development. Like, I don't consider myself to be a great developer. I don't. But I consider myself to be a practical developer, and I have the capacity to learn how to develop programs. I can't imagine what it's like to develop an OS.
Oh no, no.
Yeah, like that is systems level programming of like the highest caliber.
Yep.
Like actually developing like a software kernel. Can you imagine?
No,
like
I'm not that talented. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's exciting. Like kind of being there and in the moment and developing something like a Windows NT or a Windows 3.1 or a Windows 95. Like I can imagine that would be pretty awesome and intense. But actually, if that's true, and I don't know if it's true, that's just a story that I've always heard. That would be crazy. But I mean, that's kind of like burning your ships once you get to the new world, right? Like we're not going back.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, so dog fooding. I don't know. I just threw it on there because I heard the word dog food a lot this week. Let's just put it that way.
No, I think it's important.
Let's see. Moving down the dock here, Paul might have jury duty. It seems like that seems like a binary yes or no thing.
Well, okay. So I'm kind of hoping I do at some point. But basically, I got a letter in the mail that essentially told me from October through the end of the year, I am on call. So I could get a letter in the future saying I have to come in for jury duty.
All right, freeze frame a second. So I have talked about jury duty woes on this podcast. I am a Franklin County resident. Are you? What county?
I live in Pickaway County.
So you're Pickaway County.
Yes.
Now, is this federal court or
no? It's a
municipal
local
court?
Yeah, it's
local court. Okay. So yours works most decidingly different than
yes.
mine. Because I got a letter in the mail that was like, you will be here this day.
No. I got a letter saying I might get a letter before the end of the year.
Oh, you're preparing to dodge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just saying that,
right.
hey, like for the rest of the year, you're on call. And I had to like fill out a form, and you could basically like request up to like a week excluded, if you had vacation planned or something. So I did all that. Now I'm just kind of waiting. I check the mail every day going, is the day today? Is today the day? And I get my summons and have to go in. Yeah, so I'm honestly, like, I've never done it before. So I think I kind of feel like you do. I kind of want to see what it's all about. And maybe, like, I don't want to get on, like, obviously, like, a huge trial or anything, which I doubt Pickaway County actually does. But I'm kind of curious to see what it's like. So, yeah.
Well, if anything, it depends. If it's anything like my experience, right? Like you go in, you basically go and you sit and you wait to get picked for a jury pool. If you get picked, you sit on a trial. You'll sit on one trial and then you'll be excused. Or worst case, you kind of sit and hang out for the week and don't get picked
yeah.
or released early. And that's what happened to me. And I had, from my experience, it was the opportunity to volunteer to stay, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I do have a little bit of regret because I did kind of want to sit on a trial, but it was kind of good to get done early. And and it was kind of at a critical time in my onboarding at my job, so it was kind of bad timing. So I was more inclined to get out of there and get back to doing the things I thought I needed to be doing. But like, if I put it this way, if I was at my old job, I would have probably stayed there all week. So, okay, so they send you the letter. Was it an online form you had to fill out?
Oh no, Pickaway County's not that exciting. I had to fill out a piece of paper and send it in. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear. Yes, I did have an online form to fill out, but I would not say it was an intuitive process to fill out the website that you had to respond. So basically, when I got my summons, it came with a barcode, and it came with a 6-letter alphanumeric code or something. And you go to the website and you type in the summons ID, which is like your juror ID, and then that code. And you then have to fill out your juror information. You have to answer some questions. You have to basically declare whether or not you are to be excused immediately or not. Like there's certain disclosures. I don't know if your paper form was like that.
Yeah, it mostly just ask like what I did, what my wife did, the people in my house.
Yeah.
They claim that most of the trials only last 1 or 2 days. Yeah. They say, yeah.
Well, down in Pickaway County, when one farmer, rustles up a bunch of cattle from the other farmer, those things are pretty decided pretty quickly.
I have to imagine, yeah.
Or or somebody's shine gets knocked over by a tractor. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those petty disputes of the country of Licking County, compared to the big city of Franklin County. Okay, well that'll be exciting. Yeah. So through the end of the year, so all the way through December.
Yes, end of the year. Yep.
There's a lot of holidays between now and then.
There is.
You got Veterans Day.
I have to imagine they're closed, so I'm not too worried about that. Like, or at least like on the actual days. But yeah, I mean, I don't
know how much truth there is to this, but I think that trials typically. I think that like most trials are kind of front loaded in the week to where you get picked on a Monday, Tuesday, sometimes a Wednesday. At least in my experience and people that I've talked to that have gone through this, like if you're not seated by a Wednesday, you're probably not going to get seated.
Yeah, I imagine they'd want to at least get them all going. So if they ran a couple of days, they could be done before the weekend and don't have to bring everybody back in. And yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be fun. Yeah. You're going to get to be civic, and you've never done it before.
Last time I got called for jury duty was something much similar to this, and I basically hey, call this number in the morning and see if you have to come in, and they were like, nope, we don't need you at all. Thank you for your service. So I didn't even have to go to the courthouse.
Now that was,
yeah.
So was that for Licking County as well?
Pickaway County.
Pickaway County.
Yes,
sorry.
that was 8 years ago.
Because that's how
maybe.
Because I'm pretty sure that's how Delaware County still does it. So Dublin, where I live, we're technically in 3 counties. We're Union, Delaware, and Franklin. Okay. So I think we can be called for all 3 because my wife had to do it for Delaware, but she just had to call every morning. She didn't have to go anywhere. And I like that system better. I don't know.
So I'm kind of just waiting for my letter, see if I have to go in. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be exciting if you do.
Yeah.
That'd be good topics for the podcast.
Kind of full circle.
Yeah. Couple other things this week, but we're all kind of all over the place this week.
We are.
Yeah, it's okay. Rapid fire topics this week. I'm mad at AMD.
What did they do?
Okay, so first of all, AMD's having a bit of a moment, and I'm very, very happy. I like competition in the retail processor space. So for those of you that don't follow along on hardware news, AMD this summer kind of really stuck it to Intel a little bit insofar that their new desktop processors are very, very high core count, very, very fast, and very, very affordable. And, you're seeing AMD also strike a lot of wins in the server market. Their new EPYC server chips are faster, run cooler, run more efficient.
Less power. Yeah.
And less power and are considerably less expensive than the comparables Intel Xeon chips. Which, if you're Intel, you got to be a little bit nervous. And the other thing is you're seeing a lot of hardware partners start to do custom stuff with AMD. To wit, Microsoft just had the big announcement earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday, or I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe it was Wednesday, where they announced the new lineup of Surface devices, and the big new Surface laptop, I think, is going to have AMD processors in it. So, AMD has always kind of been around. In the past few years, they gained a lot of momentum. The last PC I built, I almost went AMD, but Intel had released a chip that was just a little bit faster for single-threaded or lightly threaded applications, aka gaming. But these new AMD chips are really, really good, and they're very, very well reviewed. They have not been without their teething problems. So one of the kind of blowback features of the new AMD chips is there was a little bit of controversy around the cores in modern kind of multi-core processors. They work on a kind of a turbo boost technology where you kind of have your base clock of your core, which might be 3.2, 3.5 gigahertz, 3.8 gigahertz, what have you. And then under load, those individual cores can speed up. Usually it's only 1 or 2 cores, sometimes 4, depending on the architecture of the processor. They can be boosted above that rated speed and can hit, 5 gigahertz. So like the Intel i9, Core i9 in my current desktop PC, that thing can hit 5 gigahertz on a boost, but only 1 core. Okay? Now AMD, so turbo boost technology is an Intel-based technology. And AMD has a similar architecture to where you have cores that can exceed the base operating clock speed, but it's not called turbo boost; it's called something else. Well, anyway, there was a bit of a dust up in that some overclock testers were noticing that not every core in the new AMD processors was capable of hitting advertised boost speeds. And at first, it wasn't that big of a deal because processors, as they're manufactured, all the cores on the die are not created equal.
That's true. Yeah.
It's kind of like when a dog has some puppies, if they have a litter of puppies, there's always some runts, right? There's always some that are a little bit smaller than the others. And by way of semiconductor manufacturing, not every core that goes into a modern multi-core processor is considered equal. But the goal is you want those stronger, better, faster processors. You want those processors being the ones that hit the turbo boost. And when AMD released their latest round of chips, it would appear that the weaker cores were the ones that were constantly being targeted for their turbo frequencies.
Fascinating.
So instead of hitting like 4.5 or 4.6 or whatever the advertised boost speed was, they were hitting not considerably lower, but maybe anywhere from like 150 to sometimes 200 megahertz lower speed than what was being advertised. And I'm hand waving and paraphrasing a lot there, but anyway. AMD released some microcode updates and pushed those to the motherboard manufacturers and did some fixes, and it improved things a little bit, but they're still having some problems. So anyway, long story short, AMD's having a bit of a moment, and I have decided that I am going to probably rebuild my desktop PC here in the coming months to a new AMD processor, but not just any AMD processor. So there is one particular processor that they're releasing, and when they had their big product release earlier in the year, one of the processors that I was most excited about was the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X. Now, the 3900 is already out. And I want to make sure I get the specs here right. So Ryzen 9 3900X. Let me make sure I get this right here. Just going to dig it. Yeah, so it is a 12-core, 24-thread processor. Its base clock runs at 3.8 gigahertz, and it boosts max boost clock, which is their way of saying right. Turbo boost, up to 4.6 gigahertz. It has a ton of cache. It's really, really nice. There's a lot of improvements to the underlying chipset. And that one came out earlier in the year. Now, yeah, that launched back in July. Now, the one that is coming out, and the one that was supposed to be out, and the reason that I'm kind of mad is the 3950X, and that is a 16-core, so you're getting 4 extra cores, you're getting 8 extra threads, so 32 threads. Base clock a little bit lower at 3.5, and boost clock up to 4.7. And we haven't even begun to talk about overclocking yet, which all of these are. So this was supposed to launch at the end of September, so my goal was to build a new PC this month. They have delayed this processor until November, and ostensibly, they're saying it's because of supply chain problems, because you cannot find any Ryzen 9 3900s right now, and all the retailers that have them have some significant markup right now. So it's pretty cost prohibitive to try to build a Ryzen 9 3900 right now if I wanted to. So I'm sort of holding out for the 3950 when it launches. It's still going to be a $700 processor, but the comparable Intel part here is like a $1,500 processor. And Intel has started to slash prices. I mean, they are starting to see kind of the effect of what AMD is doing here. So I'm just a little upset that it got delayed, but I'm fine with it if they can kind of figure out some of these problems. But I'm excited to build my next PC, and I am going to go back to AMD. I have not built an AMD system since the original Athlons launched all those years ago.
I built an Athlon system way back when.
Man, weren't those amazing?
Yep.
It was like, man, AMD's here. AMD's back. AMD's going to do something good, because those Athlons were absolutely trouncing all the 486s, 586s, Pentiums that were out there. And man, those were good times. I actually fried my original Athlon. I did.
Overclocking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I shied away from overclocking for so many years. But remember, I don't know if you remember, but they were like the cartridge-based CPUs. Like they were kind of...
Yeah.
Like they didn't sit flat on the motherboard, right? They were kind of like it was almost like an expansion card that you kind of put in there and it was raised off the board a little bit.
Yeah, I remember those. Yep.
Oh, man, that was crazy. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a little disappointed that got postponed, but I'm excited to get my hands on one eventually. I'm hoping... See, okay, so the timing here is pretty good because looking on the bright side of this isn't going to launch till November, probably mid-November. So it'll give me a little time to pick up the processor. And then if I wait a couple weeks till Black Friday, I'm hoping that I can snag some decent deals on some other parts, because here's the other thing too, is the new motherboards that support these new Ryzen processors are pretty expensive. So, building this new system is going to set me back a little bit. So if you're listening and you're in the market for a Core i9 9900K, let me know. Maybe we could talk. And a motherboard and memory, by the way. So anyway, it was just something that was annoying me this week. I guess being mad is a strong...
Disappointed?
Strong thing. I don't know. Disappointed would be a good way. Yeah, okay. Tell me about 631 guy.
Okay. So my daughter is playing soccer. So she has practice twice a week from 5:30 to 6:30. And I've never been at a practice. Like, she's been playing since she's been a little bit. And practices always run a few minutes over. Usually they're done by 10 minutes after. Usually 5 to 10 minutes after it's done. It's just part of the thing. Like, the coach isn't going to stop what they're doing. They gather up at the end and talk and get put their hands together and cheer and whatever. But I've been noticing as I'm going to these practices, there's this one guy, and I decided that today I was really going to pay attention to him and just bask in his majesty. And and internally I call him 631 guy. And what he does is, so all the parents are out there. We've got our little folding chairs, in our bags, and we sit up there and, we watch the kids. I listen to podcasts on my phone. A lot of people are just, probably Facebooking, not paying a whole lot of attention.
Well, you listen to some podcasts on your phone.
Yes. I don't. Yes. Guilty. And he fascinates me because he does this every time. So right around 6:25, he stands up and he puts his chair away. Now, all the other parents, we know it's not going to be 6:30, right? We're just sitting there. We're relaxing. 5 till 6:25, he stands up. He puts his chair away. At 6:30, he kind of starts looking at his watch and he starts just not really pacing, but kind of just walking in place. I can feel the anxiety building up inside of him. And then as soon as 6:31 hits, he has to let the coach know very loudly that it's after 6:30.
Oh, no.
Yes. I don't know whether he's got somewhere to be or whether he's just super anxious, but something about his behavior, and he's not nice about it. He's very rude. I don't just...
Yeah, I feel like that could be an email.
Yeah, but he's done this over and over again, and yeah, it just today I left my AirPods in, but I stopped the podcast so I could just pretend like I wasn't watching and really bask in the full majesty of it. And then the coach, they were scrimmaging, and the coach was like, "Well, I'm just going to finish up this play, and then we'll go." And he just gets more antsy, and he's kind of just walking, and he's looking at his watch. And then the scrimmage is still going on. He basically tells his kid to stop, get his water bottle, and come.
Wow.
So then he puts this on. They're basically telling his kid, everyone on your team's still playing, but you have to stop, and we're leaving right now. And
that's not something that'll get you embarrassed at all as a child. No,
not at all. Yeah. So by the time that my they wrapped it up and they talked about the next game, and she was walking over to me to leave, I turned and looked, and he was already speeding out of the parking lot.
Well, okay, okay, so let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's assume that he thinks this is okay.
He clearly does. Yeah.
So, all right, so. There's a couple different ways we could maybe explain this behavior. I think the first is, and this is probably the most plausible definition here, is he's a guy that thinks it's rude that if you're late or you don't stick to your commitments. And I would say that he's probably not wrong, but this is like kids soccer.
Well, exactly. Like,
right? This isn't a scheduled meeting at work.
And to be honest, like the soccer league, like it barely functions. Like it's scraping by just with the minimum amount of planning. And I've been doing this a long time. I have never had a practice like they hardly ever end on time. They're always running a few minutes late. So I just kind of like, yeah. So clearly in his head, he believes he's the one being robbed.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a problem that he needs to be loud about. Yeah. I get it. Okay, so maybe, just trying to understand it here. Do you think it could be like, my kid has homework, we need every possible minute we can have here? Like, do you think that there's something else that he needs to shuttle these children to be on time or maximize time?
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Or do you think he's just being an annoying human?
Well, like, considering that all the kids are like between 9 and 12, there's not a lot of homework going on at that age. Like, there's not.
Okay, so we can rule that out.
It's possible.
Do you think?
And there might be some sort of obligation, but like,
you're right. To your point, though, there are other ways to do
and
this.
And it's not like he only does it on Thursdays. He also does it on Mondays. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it is something clearly that happens every time.
Every practice. Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to like get some like Facebook Live time on this guy to see what else he's up to and what else he's calling out. Boy, how do you think this guy is in an airport?
Oh, yeah, because
I bet you he's a real joy.
Because nothing's on time at an airport.
Do you think? Okay, let's just bear with me here. Do you think it's possible that this man owns a clock company and he's not being true to the mission statement of his company to ever be late?
His spirit animal wants him to be on time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. It's just fascinating. Like I'm a early is on time is late is dead kind of guy. You know, I like things ending at a certain time. Like I respect my time. I'm a little. I'm not going to say anal about my time, but my wife probably would be, especially like arriving and being on time to places. But like at this, like they're kids, like at a soccer practice, and you just kind of have to like it's.
And they're probably having fun.
Yeah, they were like they usually end practice with a scrimmage. So they're
Yeah, so when the clock strikes 6:30, like you can't just have a kid stop having fun like on time, right? Man, that is that's not good behavior.
Yeah, he's been on my mind because today we had practice today and he was really on my.
Has anybody said anything to him?
No, I'm afraid to a little bit. Like he's clearly tightly wound. Yeah,
you don't want to end up on their nerves.
But it's funny. He just like my clockwork. 6:31. It's after 6:30. Time for the kids to go.
Yeah. Boy, if I was that coach, I'd be like, "Thanks for the update, Big Ben."
Stops like, right? I know. Like we're gonna finish this up, and then we'll be done. And that's not good enough for him.
Oh, you know what you should do is you should like park in front of him so he can't back out.
Oh, yeah.
See, this is how I get into trouble, Paul.
So 6:31 guy, if you're out there, just pop a Xanax or something.
Don't
man.
shoot me.
Just...
Yeah, don't bring a gun to soccer practice. Yeah. Boy, that's unnerving, and it's got to be uncomfortable.
Honestly, at this point, I just kind of find it funny. Like, I'm sure the coach does not appreciate it. Heck, I'm sure his son doesn't really appreciate it. But, like, man, it amused me today. I really leaned into it. I really paid attention. I truly enjoyed him today. So,
do you think you can get a recording of him? Not a video, but like you think you can get a good audio recording of him?
You know what? They have practice next week. I will certainly try.
Because we need to play that at the end of every one of our podcasts.
Yeah. I'll see if I can sneak that and capture that. Yeah.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if we had at the end of each of our podcasts, it's 6:29, and then the podcast just goes dark. Oh, Paul, please,
right.
please.
I'll see what I can do.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna own that guy. Royalties. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Oh man. Okay. Anything else, man? This has been
lots of mini topics today. Yeah.
A lot of front matter, as they say in the podcast biz. Oh, it's 6:29. What else we have going on here? What else we want to talk about before we call it a night?
I don't know. I was looking at the list, and most everything else looks big. I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting week for me. I got to throw some more topics on there for next week. Yep. Okay. We'll call it there then. Yeah, so a lot of mini topics this week brought to you by Doing Their Best here. So, Paul, where can people find us on the internet?
You can find us on Twitter at DoingBestPod, and our website is doingtheirbest.com. Keep sending in those intros. Friend of the show, Uriah, sent us 3 intros. So we're gonna go through those. I guess bestie. I should use the word bestie. And of course, you know, your lovely wife sent us the intro. I got that literally when I was at soccer practice. I'm like, nope, this is going in. A
friend of Bestie Uriah. How do we know him?
You don't. He now works at where I work.
Okay. So he's one of you guys.
So he works on a different team, and I didn't realize he listened to the podcast. So he's a big board gamer as well. So. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to be like, that's weird if you're making your new direct report.
No, I haven't even.
Okay, all right.
I haven't even really, brought it up. Like, other people have talked about it, but I've kind of downplayed it because I don't want to be like, hey, I'm your supervisor and I have a podcast and you should totally listen to it.
Yeah, that's not
no. Yeah, I'd feel pretty scummy about that. Yeah, so if you have those intros, just, bust out voice recorder, send it in. I love.
Yeah, we're not looking for quality. We're really not. We're really not. And we've been super appreciative. I really like Gene's intro. That you could tell he was rehearsed. He was polished. Yeah, I like that.
That was good.
Yeah. So so keep sending things in. Keep sending in topics as well.
Absolutely.
If there's stuff you want to hear about. You and I, Paul, are having a game night soon. I had to push it back a week. I don't know if you got that email yet.
I got that email. I think I'll be able to make it because starting on Thursday evening next week, I'm officially on vacation for over a week. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're not leaving right away. So we gotta get that going. There's a couple new games that I think will probably become topics on the podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think you're really going to enjoy one of them. I'm looking forward to playing it, and I'm hoping we can get that going here pretty soon.
Do you want to tell us what it is, or you want it to be a surprise?
No, it's fine. I'll tell it what it is. It's a game called Tapestry, and it came out fairly recently from Stone Mayer Games, makers of such great games like Viticulture and Wingspan. It was a game that I regretted not getting in early on the Wingspan hype when that game launched, and that game's amazing. So I got an email that said that their new game called Tapestry was coming out, and it is a civilization builder game. So I got in on that. I got a limited edition copy, just like I have a limited edition copy of Scythe. I'm like number 128 of 500 initial print.
I'm looking at the components on Board Game Geek, and I'm in.
The pictures do not do that game justice. Those miniatures in the game don't look like they're interesting at all. They are much better and much more weighty and to hold on to. So this is a civ builder game that is a little bit deceptively simple. You don't have a lot of actions that you do on your turn. You're basically racing along different tracks to advance your civilization. You're also building your home city. You get special bonuses to your civilization, and it looks to be a lot of fun. There is some player interaction. There's a little bit of war. There's a little bit of intrigue. I think it's going to be really fun. And then I also picked up Welcome To.
Oh, I've heard about that quite a bit.
I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, I picked up I snagged a copy of that as well, which will be really entertaining to play with our group of friends. So we may be talking a lot about board games next. Well, maybe not next podcast, depending on when we record it, but we'll be talking about podcasts for sure, or not podcasts, talking about board games for sure. Yeah. Okay. So did we talk about where people can find us? I already forgot.
No, we talked about the podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Paul Baylor. And where can they find you, Drew?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Pittsburgh. Like Paul said, keep sending us stuff. Keep letting us know if you like it or don't like it. If you don't like it, we'll probably just ignore you. That's how this works. Otherwise, continue to follow us, continue to tell us stuff, and we appreciate all the feedback and all the things you guys have done for us. I'm still having fun. Paul, you still having fun?
Every day.
Awesome. All right, well, we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.